and a warm welcome as you join us for tonight's show. If this is your first time here, you've come to the right place, where we are committed to providing information and resources for everyday Canadians. Our guest speaker this evening is our very own Tanya Gaw, and the title of tonight's show is Islam, a Threat to National Security. It's January 28th, 2026, and this is the Empower Hour. It's always a pleasure to introduce you to Tanya Gaw, the founder and leader of Action for Canada. For over 10 years now, Tanya has been focusing on faith, family, and freedom. And she and the Action for Canada team are always hard at work bringing awareness to the many critical issues facing our nation. I think you'll agree that it's always a special treat to have Tanya as our guest speaker, as she shares information, insights, and personal experiences with us. Will you all please help me welcome Tanya Gaw?
Now, this is about the Muslim Brotherhood.
From what I can gather, it's kind of a 100-year plan, and
Correct.
We're 50 years in.
Correct.
And how are they doing? What are some of the points they've hit?
Well, think about it. If we take a step back, Qatar is a country. It's a tiny country in the Middle East. It has less than 350,000 citizens.
Oh.
Tiny country.
Yeah.
Qatar is giving more money to British education, to Canadian education, higher education, to American universities than any country in the world. So why would this tiny, wealthy country give so much money to Western democratic universities? And it's to use soft power to influence it. And the Qataris have a bay'ah. In Islam, a bay'ah is a spiritual oath to the Muslim Brotherhood. The royal family of Qatar follows all of the religious edicts, rulings, and fatwas of the Muslim Brotherhood. They basically represent the Brotherhood around the world. And we estimate that the Qataris are using up to $1 trillion in assets to use as soft power to buy favor in universities, in our media, in our political leaders, to further their goals and their agenda. So Qatar is at the forefront of basically representing the interests of the Brotherhood, which is basically to destroy democratic countries. So they're giving all this aid. Naively, many people think they're benevolent and they're doing wonderful work and funding our universities. But essentially, they're changing the discourse in the West. So if we take a step back, Hamas, which is the Palestinian chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood, intent on destroying Israel and Western democratic countries. Hamas, which is anti-Semitic, but let's put that aside for a moment. They're anti-democratic, they're sexist, they want to subjugate women, murder gay people, and do away with religious minority rights around the world. Hamas murdered American citizens and British citizens on October the 7th. They kidnapped them. And amazingly, some of the best universities, the Ivy Leagues in the United States, Oxbridge in the United Kingdom, the University of London, are turning out some of the brightest, best educated young people, young citizens of democracies, and they're supporting Hamas. They're supporting anti-democratic, vulgar terrorists who adhere to a culture of death, who want to destroy democracy, who want to destroy Britain and France and Italy and Germany and Canada and Australia and the United States. And young people are being inculcated in this sort of red-green alliance of the radical left, which has dominated many of our best universities. And because the radical left wants to get rid of Western hegemony, the Islamists who want to destroy Western hegemony.
And that's what I was just talking about, the Red-Green Alliance. We're going to start diving in further into the Muslim Brotherhood now and the effects that is having on Canadians, on our institutions, and our children. And as this gentleman has just said, the Qatar is funding our universities. Next week, Dallas Brody will be on the show, and you will see what the funding is doing to our students and our children, where they are being radicalized into these activists. And so we're seeing that present itself in different ways, whether it's the Palestinians that were coming out on the university grounds, or whether it is against the, for instance, the Kamloops mass graves and the desire to get the truth shut down as intelligent people come to the universities wanting to have a conversation, like Francis Widdowson and Dallas and Jim McMurdy. This is the strategy. This is the way it's working. And in a moment, or let me just think, I hope I don't miss this, but there was an article, I believe it's still coming up. I'm just going to go back to this article where the Muslims were referring to themselves as Indigenous. I believe it's coming up, but Indigenous to Canada. And if we're not aware of this, if we're not stepping up and countering it, all they have in mind very strategically is to progress and to progress and progress. Another way that the Muslims are shutting down the criticism is, I came across this report the other day, and in Europe, Qatar had paid a British PR firm for millions to manipulate Wikipedia, scrubbing terrorism references and reframing Israel-Palestine for years. If they can spend millions of dollars interfering with our history, and that's why Wikipedia, it's no longer safe. If you're going to use an AI system of some sort, you've got to be very, very careful. If they provide you information, you need to dig even deeper then and do research yourself. I've had to do a lot of that to make sure that the information that is in my hands is actually true. And that's because, our search engines, AI, and these other systems are going to put forward a very leftist either opinion on it. If you were to look up the mass graves in Kamloops, for instance, you would be hard pressed to find out that is a hoax. Thank goodness that there has been a Supreme Court ruling recently that the documents related to that need to be released. But that happens because people are pressing back. So we're fighting for truth on all levels here. And this is just another indication in the media as to how. The Muslim Federal Employees Guide, you may have heard about this as well. They're consistently working, as I said, in lobbying. So it says Charter or Sharia, how Canada's federal workplace is being re-engineered into a parallel Islamic system. So the Muslim Federal Employees Network has produced a guide for federal managers that goes far beyond normal religious accommodation. It introduces Islamic rules, expectations, and sensitivities into the structure of federal workplaces. So, for instance, they want to have accommodations up to 3 daily prayers during work hours. Okay, they want to be able to have the direction of the prayer rooms. They avoid handshakes or private meetings with the opposite sex employees. It tells managers to avoid alcohol-centered events, modified schedules throughout Ramadan. It just goes on. And this is what I'm talking about. We should not be accommodating any other cultures in Canada. That was a big, big mistake. Again, I'm going to give a big shout out to Elaine Ellinger. She is a fantastic researcher and writer. In Western Standard, it says they talked about obediently cowering under the threat of being wrongly accused of hate. And there's that term again, Islamophobia. They've got on a lot of mileage out of that. I guess that was worth their time, even though it's emotion. They're getting all the mileage in the world out of it. And like the no coffee for you, Ottawa's DEI Ramadan rules crossed the line. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI is being promoted by the federal government to amplify and prioritize hiring foreigners over Canadians. You've all heard about this for some time. Just walk into a Walmart. You can drive by a Tim Hortons and you recognize it there, and many, many other places. And so if we want this to stop, then we have to get DEI overturned, and there's many more actions that we need to put into place. Okay, so this is the report that I was telling you about. So this is actually from this is the guide. And so the Muslim Federal Employees Network, I mean, it had like 100 employees, Muslim employees. So we're going to upset thousands of employees to accommodate you. And if not, you're a racist or you're Islamophobe. Well, go ahead and call me that. No, I'm a Canadian patriot, and I'm not going to accommodate you in the workplace. And the federal government needs to overturn this accommodation. And so it goes on to say, the MFEN, whatever, acknowledges that our members live and work on the unceded and unsurrendered traditional territories of Indigenous people, which includes Indigenous Muslims in Canada. Come on. Come on, you guys. All right. I've been at this for days, doing the research for years. And as I was putting this together, you just don't think it can get any dumber or any worse. And here they are. Push, 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 shove, shove, shove. It is our priority as Muslims living in Canada that justice, a central tenet of Islam, be done for the nations on whose lands we reside. Really, you think they care about the Indians and their rights? Especially when they take over? I mean, come on. You'd have to be pretty silly and pretty gullible to believe any of this. Here is Amira again, and I just wanted to show again that she's using her position to push this guide. She's going to be in there in every position that she can, pushing whatever she using her trusted position to advance Islam in Canada. And us sillies are paying for it. And none of you are up there, by the hundreds of thousands out in our streets rallying against this. I hear there's a big rally happening January 31st. Actually, Canadians are coming out. So, you know what? Research it, Google it, get out there and just start rallying. Get a ton of people out in your community, because I know that's happening on January 31st. So let's do it. Minister MacDonald to announce federal investment to support halal production. Okay. Look at all of these signs of halal. There is more that I'll be coming out on regarding halal. This needs to be overturned. This is where Canadians need to say absolutely not. Halal is Islamic law. And there are many reports stating that, and we've got the evidence from here in Canada, that a portion of halal funds terrorism. So again, do you want your Canadian dollars supporting this? Why do we need to advance halal products in Canada? But look at this. This was a report that was done by the Point de Bascule and Muslim Association of Canada, MAC, which is under investigation right now by the CRA for allegedly funding terrorism. It says a contributor to Hamas fund collector controls halal certification in Quebec. Look at the date, April 3rd, 2012. And right now they're again before the CRA, and they've lied apparently under oath about RCMP reports and stuff, and nothing has been done. Why is this organization still operating in Canada after all this time? So for the last 10 years, MAC, now that's 10 years, so that goes back to 2002, so that makes this even a worse scenario, has been an important contributor to IRFAN Canada, the Hamas fund collector in the country. Hamas is involved in a program aiming not only at the elimination of the state of Israel, well, we know all about that, but Western civilization. Okay? Talks about its leader. Then it goes down here. No public money should be spent to buy products that will be served in schools and daycare centers, military bases, which I just told you, halal is now being served in our Canadian military bases, no matter all these warnings, decades of warnings about this, in prisons and in other public institutions, if these products have been certified by imams who belong to organizations that received money or gave money to terrorist organizations, funds, collectors, or if they are involved in a project aiming at destroying Western civilization from within. Well, we have enough information on imams across Canada where that would apply. Now, this was a picture. I don't have a Costco card, but I was with somebody this particular day, and I was like, holy smokes, take a look at this. I had a video. I'll probably post it on I'll post it on my Twitter page, my X page, and I went all the way around. So if I could zoom in right now, you'll see that I think these were chicken legs on for, was that $24.99? Like, prices are crazy, but anyways, that's besides the point. If you look down in the bottom left-hand corner, this is all halal meat. There is no signage to tell shoppers, consumers, that this is a halal product. And if you know, they slit the animal's throat without any stunning, and they let it bleed to death as they pray over it. And I say they pray a curse over it because they pray to their false god Allah, which means I say that's the devil. And so this is cursed meat as far as I'm concerned. Why aren't Canadian chicken farmers getting the business? And when I spoke to the manager and when I looked this up, it's because their halal meat can't be in the same refrigeration system as non-halal products because it's not pure. All right. And so because it would cost Costco more money to get more refrigeration, they decided, hey, yeah, that's fine. Let's go all halal. And apparently they kill the chicken by machine. So, oh, no, it's not halal. They kill them by machines. I'm like, are you kidding me? People are that ignorant to what is going on in our country and what is behind the Islamic movement. So there should be a petition. There should be outrage. Every time you go into Costco, I want you questioning them. I want you to write the head office. There are so many actions that we could be sending out right now, and there's not enough time in the day. I would never sleep. Between the Manitoba one, we got to do an action. We got to get this overturned in Manitoba. Our K-12 students, education K-12, to put in anti-Islamophobia education to teach our kids not to criticize Islam when we need to be teaching them to criticize Islam and to be very wary of it. Now, what's going on with Costco? Well, let's see. Who are their main holders? That would be Vanguard and BlackRock. Two globalist organizations that are working to take down the West. So if I would love it, you could do without Costco. I know times are hard and they got good prices. But can you imagine if millions of people cut up their Costco card and said, I'm not shopping there anymore? All right, this is a corporation that is meant to get rid of the small businesses so that when the globalists may advance even further, if we don't shut this down, if you don't have a Costco card, you're not going to be able to buy groceries and there will be no small businesses left. So you got to determine for yourself. This was an image we made a little while ago because we plan on advancing this, ban halal and Islamic dress codes. In Iran, women are lives. They know they're risking their lives to pull the hijabs off their head. And in Canada, we got ridiculous teachers and activists within the schools are do-gooders, thinking it's great. Let's just teach our kids to have a hijab on their head. Well, do you know what that means for little girls at 6 years old now who have to put a hijab on and wear it to school every day? This is oppression. This is terrorism in our country, and we need to put a stop to it. And I had talked earlier about the Muslim vote, and now I'm going to dive into this fella here. He goes by the name of Mickey Amory. He's Lebanese, and he's a Muslim. His actual name is Qasim Mohammed Maki Amory, and he has advanced, Daniel Smith, whether she knows it or not, he has advanced to the Attorney General of Alberta. And that's him taking an oath. I'm trying to find out right now if that was most likely, I have no doubt in my mind that what that book was inside would be the Quran. And he is advancing Islam in Canada. Now, this is another report. I'm not going to make this report public yet. It is a deep dive investigative report that is highlighting some of the activities of Mickey Amory, who is focused on, from all appearances, advancing Islam in Alberta. And we talked about the Red-Green Alliance. He is having an influence as far as police reform to alter the court system. I feel that he's working to bring in Sharia courts and to seek influence over child services. This would enable the concealment of domestic abuse, female genital mutilation, and other practices that are fundamentally incompatible with Canadian values. And I'm not saying that's what he's doing, but things look very suspect in this report that is the direction it's going. He has posted, it was an honor to join Muslim leaders in Alberta alongside Kenny and Casey at the Al Rashid Mosque in Edmonton. The Al Rashid Mosque is very well known for having controversial radical Islamic speakers there. There's concerns over education materials in the school, youth events that they've had, and individuals that are coming, radical extremists that are speaking to youth. And this whole report, the other report that I'm going to show in just a moment, goes into so they're talking about a new Alberta hate crimes unit. And if you know that Alberta had extended to fast track foreigners to come into their new police unit, we've expressed great concerns over this. And so I'm just going to try to fly through this report because I know that we're getting a little further out on time. A lot of the people that Mr. Amory is in the company of is very concerning. He has spent time at the Akram Joma Center which has reported ties to extremism and speakers that preach hate. They are very, very focused. Here is one of the Islamic centers. You can see all the Muslims that are coming together there. Page 29, I'm just scrolling down here. Here he is with a group with the Palestinian flag being flown. Again, here it talks about the education, healthcare, and social reform. These are trigger words. They're red flag words that we need to be concerned about. Again, advancing, discussions around multiculturalism and anti-racism. Prior to all of these individuals getting into office, we didn't have a problem with this. We really had no problem with this in Canada. We didn't have to coordinate all of this. And this is consistently the group of people of Muslims and Islamists that he is definitely being seen in the company of a lot. This one talks about Alberta's government will be matching funding up to $1 million to help with recovery efforts. And this was Alberta will match donations for earthquake victims in Turkey and Syria. Now, I don't ever remember him offering $1 million to help after October 7th attack against the Israelis, or any assistance that I've seen him prioritize for one of our closest allies. I was glad to attend Alberta Advocacy Day organized by the National Council of Canadian Muslims, the NCCM, are reported to have, and they're in the other report. All of this one day I hope to be making public. With some very concerning individuals and work that they are doing. So the NCCM comes up a lot at the Alberta Legislature yesterday to discuss ways we can collectively work together to curb all forms of racism and hate in our communities. We don't have racism and hate. Like, if they would just integrate and assimilate, then, what they're hearing is people objecting to them pushing their culture on us and bringing it into Canada. That's not our problem. We don't have to apologize for that, and there is no work. That's not racism or hate. It's a matter that we are patriots, and we want to make sure that our country maintains its identity. Our government remains fully committed to stand against discrimination of all kinds and make Alberta a welcoming place for all peoples, irrespective of race or religion. They make it about all people, but when you dive into the work that he's doing, the majority is all Muslims and of his work. And you can see that even in a bio that he did when he came into office, it was very, very telling where his priority is. And this is, again, called political entryism, where they get into these positions and advance their culture, their beliefs, their political systems. And they do it very stealthily. And it comes across like it's as the benefit for everyone, but it's not. It benefits only their community and their advancements of Islamizing Canada. And Premier Smith, we have appealed to her time and again for a sit-down meeting to discuss this. We'll continue to do that. And yet here she is at events wearing the hijab and advancing halal banking. Here on Islamic compliant. That word Islamic. Okay, this is Islamic law. Halal is Islamic law. Islamic financing. We have one financing. Again, if you don't like it, then people would leave. I'll just keep scrolling along here. I know the time, but like I say, it's not a report that we can rush through. This is a post with screenshots of Danielle's letter. Halal financing, funding Islamic schools and getting more schools combat racism and Islamophobia. Who is it that's talking in Danielle Smith's ear to make these kind of advancements, to prioritize Islam in Canada? Something's very wrong with this picture, and I think we need to know who it is that's advancing this. So do we have reasonable concerns over the position that Mr. Amery holds at this point? I think we do. Muslim Association of Canada. The Muslim Association of Canada is very well known to be under investigation by the CRA and a history of concerns over them potentially funding terrorism. There's no way that Mickey Amery does not know this. So why is he spending so much time as an acting elected official in Canada in the best interest of Canadians? He's taken an oath. Did he take an oath on the Quran? I believe so. We'll find that information out because then we know where his priorities are. Now, as we go down to, again, 43, it goes National Association, National Day of Islamophobia. Again, he's right there. It's very questionable, this National Day of Remembrance. And it goes on as to why, you know what, it absolutely, it's devastating if, anybody is dying by violence. But a lot of this has happened in Canada and there isn't a national day for them. And they get the month of Ramadan, and I think as Veterans Day, we get one day. We don't have a month of anything, right? There should be no Khalistani month, no Sikh month, no Islam month, no Ramadan month. Everything on the calendar has to be stripped, and it should be all things Canada. If you agree with me, give me a thumbs up. Share this information. This goes into the Muslim Association of Canada, an Islamist organization with alleged ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, received nearly 31 million from public coffers between 2018 and 2022. So we're funding all these Islamic groups, 42 million to 5 Islamist charities with ties to extremist organizations. They regularly deploy the Islamophobia accusation to silent critics. We've talked a lot about that on the show tonight. Islamist organizations that support enemies of the West are currently benefiting from public monies. Now, this gentleman's name is Colin May, and the NCCM, I believe it was, or MAC, I think it was the NCCM, came after him. He was a human rights lawyer, and they filed complaints against him because he wasn't standing for the Muslims coming in and filing bogus claims. And so instead, they worked their magic and they got him removed. Those are the type of people we want on the Human Rights Commission. And then the last one that I'll just show you here is on page 52. This was very, very concerning. This was May 15th, I believe, 2024. And Mickey, he ends up posting this saying, many Albertans prefer resolving legal matters outside the traditional court system for a culturally sensitive, less stressful process. Proud to support 39 organizations throughout the province with Alberta community justice grants, making our justice systems more accessible, inclusive, and responsive to the needs of our diverse communities. Now, we've heard in Europe and the UK that there are Sharia courts. We're hearing that in every Muslim community, some of them stealth have their Sharia courts. You can divorce by, I think, turning around 7 times. This is Islamic law in Canada. We can't have other laws operating within Canada. And so I'm reading between the lines here. I could be wrong. I may be proven wrong on this. Somebody let me know. But I don't like the language that's being used. Prefer resolving legal matters outside the traditional court system. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but we look forward to learning more. In Mickey Emery here as well, because he's from Lebanon, I just wanted to point out again, this information is in the report. Since the beginning of the invasion in Lebanon, they go on, our office has been trying to obtain information on how Canadians, permanent residents, and their direct family members can seek help. Many Albertans have close connections to this conflict, and so what they're doing here again is he was prioritizing his community from Lebanon in offering them assistance. I don't see him prioritizing the Christians in Nigeria. I don't understand how Daniel Smith has somebody on her team that is overstepping and prioritizing Islam in his position rather than doing his job to advance Canadian values in the Canadian legal system. Canadian Muslim group features radicals at annual conference, and the only reason I did this was to show you the Muslim Association of Canada, MAC, the largest grassroots Muslim charity in Canada, hosted its annual convention in Mississauga. They do this every year. I believe this one was last year, and it's the same story every single year that MAC has this conference, this convention, is that they have radical Islamist imams coming in and preaching hate and spewing hate. That is MAC. Everybody knows this. That's anybody that knows anything about this community. There is no way that Mickey Amery doesn't know this. So I am challenging the Alberta government to investigate this further and possibly make some changes within the structure of their government. This was just another report. Again, it could be ad nauseum about the Muslim Association of Canada and the concerns over the way that they are operating in Canada. Now, this is a 23-page, and then I'll be closing up after this, but I could go on this report alone for an hour, if not more. And this report has been delivered to Daniel Smith in a binder, about 3 inches thick, with all of the information printed to support our concerns. Again, we're addressing the Muslim Brotherhood, as it is a transnational Sunni Islamist movement that seeks to implement Sharia Islamic law under a global caliphate. I've many times before mentioned this quote from the Muslim Brotherhood, who say that they want to sabotage our miserable house by our hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated. And they do that by stealthily coming into government positions and advancing the cause of Islam. Muslims are weaponizing the term Islamophobia. I've mentioned that throughout the report. Political entryism I've mentioned. Workplace accommodations we've spoken about. Halal products I have also covered in this report. The concerns about the funding of terrorism. I provide links and information. And like I say, one day I hope to make this public so that you can make this available to other elected officials. I targeted Alberta. I could target any province that I wanted to and come up with this information. You could do a deep dive report on Manitoba, on Toronto, on Quebec, and you can see how Islam is actively advancing in every single one of our provinces. So the terrorist organizations in Canada, Justin Trudeau was very, very aware of all of this. Back in 2017, I wrote the report, The Rise of Political Islam. It's on our webpage. And I sent it to every single MP at the time, 338 of them. And I said, you are complicit with treason if you vote in favor of motion M103. And the majority of them voted in favor of motion M103. Every single Liberal, NDP, Green. I can't recall the Conservatives, but I could look that up. And here, I mentioned it right here, actually, the report, and I've provided that. Okay, we talked about the halal meat. In 2024, the Alberta government closed 7 unlicensed Muslim-operated facilities involved in illegal animal slaughter. There was actually criminal charges against some of the halal financial groups because they committed fraud. The RCMP, you can look that report up as well. Okay, just a reminder, MAC is part of an ongoing investigation where auditors allege the Canadian charity helped Hamas financier. MAC's message to Premier Daniel Smith. In 2023, we look forward to working with you to fulfill promises and build a brighter future for all. Alberta celebrates Eid and Fitra. What is Eid? It's a barbaric Muslim festival where fully conscious animals have their throats cut, leaving them to slowly bleed out in agonizing pain until they die. Daniel Smith, a quote from her is, with more than 200,000 Muslims in Alberta, Eid al-Fitr is an opportunity to recognize the important contributions of Muslim Albertans to our province and how these contributions enrich our communities. Now, do you remember at the beginning of the show, or part 1 of the show, I end up talking about this worldwide concern about the way that terrorism is entering, and it is by so many political figures accommodating them because they're getting something in return. Is it votes? Is it money? What is it? What is it that would cause Daniel Smith not to understand or see how terribly concerning this is and where she is leading Alberta if she doesn't turn around? She has the opportunity to turn this around, saying, I made a mistake. And we're not going to do this anymore. Celebrate Ramadan. For any of you that don't know, Ramadan celebrates the anniversary of the Battle of Badr. This battle, pivotal in Islamic history, remains a symbol of divine intervention and victory in jihad, one that has inspired all Muslims for centuries. It's one of Islam's greatest victories over non-Muslims, a victory that paved the way of Islam's expansion beyond Arabia and eventually into the Western world at the cost of millions of lives lost in wars, raids, and forced conversions. So when you see, the month of Ramadan, when you hear that our RCMP are celebrating Ramadan, for lack of knowledge, people perish. They are ignorant to what Ramadan is actually celebrating or what Eid represents. Go down to page 16. Like I said, now we're going into the schooling, and it is incredibly concerning what's being taught in the schools. We go into the Muslim Council of Calgary, works with the Muslim Association of Canada. Mac Islamic School Calgary is an independent Alberta accredited K-9 school established by Mac in 2017 to serve the educational needs of Calgary's growing Muslim community. And it talks about one of the members of the Islamic Association of Canada and a senior Canadian Islamic educator. And he's also the director of the Muslim Association of Canada. All of this is connected, these people, with the Islamic schools in Canada. Why are they operating? I'm concerned for all children in Canada, but I'm concerned for the Muslim kids that came from, oppressive countries for freedom, and yet they're just being indoctrinated here on Canadian soil. And then as well, some unknowing parents think, hey, I think it's a good idea. I'll sign my kid up go to an Islamic school. And these are the threats that we're facing. Hijab, the hijab, puberty and child marriage. Hijabs are a symbol of oppression created 1,300 years after the Quran. In Iran, over 100,000 women protested the headscarf. The hijab is an affront to women in the West and is being weaponized to undermine Canadian democracy. And what they're doing is, you may say, oh my goodness, there's so many Muslims here. I'm recognizing so many because you're seeing the hijabs. And it is reported that the mosques have told Muslim women to wear the hijabs. So this is that strategy. They'll get to a certain number. They'll start to influence, the public and make themselves more well-known. You see the Muslims out on the streets, blocking streets and praying. This is all part of their warfare. A Canadian Mufti is advising Canadian Muslims that based on teaching of Islam, sexual desire is aroused in human beings at the age of puberty. In Islamic legal definition, puberty, bula, is determined by age 15 lunar years for boys and 9 lunar years for girls. Sound familiar? That comes from their boss, okay? And the other thing that you may not know, in Islamic culture and traditional Muslim societies, the hijab is a marker of a girl attaining puberty and eligibility to marriage. So sometimes I was told that you will see young girls, the parents decide to put the hijab on because they've reached puberty, and that is a sign to others that they are ready for marriage. It's so sad. When I go through this, I just want to weep. The late Mufti Ibrahim Deze is another example of a Canadian mom who taught Muslims that child marriage pedophilia is acceptable under Islamic law. He instructs a 45-year-old man who wants to marry a 12-year-old and have sex with her that it is permitted. According to the Sharia, if a girl is a minor, did not attain puberty, she may be given in marriage by her father. There is no age limit to be intimate with one's wife, even if she is a minor. Now, because Muslims will say, oh, no, the Quran doesn't say that. That's not what we teach, all these different things. And so Canadians are believing that. But here's the evidence. This is what they are teaching within their communities here in Canada. I could go on and on. It is just absolutely so disturbing, but you get the idea. I talked about Al-Quds Day is a state-sponsored anti-Israel event orchestrated annually by the Iranian regime to support the Islamic Revolutionary Guard here in Canada. IRGC, of course, is a terrorist organization. And then this just goes down and it talks about all the hate preaching that's going on, just examples of what's going on through imams in Alberta, mosques, and Islamic centers. So it's like, please, Premier Smith, make no mistake, if you think that you want to continue to fund the mosques and support the building of more mosques and Islamic centers, can everybody just take a look at this and take a pause? Can we have some conversation about this before we allow them to put more mosques in communities? I understand what's going into Edmonton. There's a report that they bought land in Calgary. Unless you are busy going to the city council meetings, you're missing all of this. You have every opportunity to gather people. I just got a wonderful email this morning from our chapter leader in Oshawa, and it was regarding the densification that was going to go on, and 8 people showed up to be delegates. 3 of them were our chapter leaders, and by the end of it, they had convinced city council that densification isn't a good idea, and we won. We've got more stories like this. But if we have 50 chapters compared to 400 chapters, think about what we could be doing as a nation if we coordinate and work together. So I will just close up here. It says, judge rules immigration to Canada is not a right. And and that is exactly, it had to do with a Hindu woman was fraudulently trying to become a Canadian citizen. And we know all the reports. I was listening to one the other day, and it was talking about what's going on in India right now. They've got like 10,000 offices, and it has become a huge business to help Hindus, Indians, Hindus immigrate to Canada, probably America and other places, fraudulently by work in the system, by even just getting in here as a student and then disappearing. And so that's why, again, I say we need a massive moratorium on immigration, like immediately. And we need to deport at least 3 million people, like yesterday. So in closing, there is, I realize there's one more thing that I'm going to cover. But if you go to current issues and under political Islam in Canada, you'll find many of our reports and resources, the petition that I've spoken about. This video will end up on that page as well. Now, I was going to do this at the beginning, but I saved it till the end. You may or may not have heard about the breaking news here in Surrey, and that the mayor of city is calling a state of emergency because of the Hindu and Sikh gang extortion crisis. And there has been something like 38 shootings since the beginning of the year. And I had posted this on my own X account the other day, and she had called out to Carney for an extortion czar. And I clearly said, we don't need an extortion czar. We need to shut down every Hindu and Sikh temple. And then a couple of people came back, so, I know nice Sikhs and you've really offended them and this and that. I'm like, well, it doesn't change. It doesn't change the facts that inside their temples, they glorify terrorists. They have pictures of them in their walls. We have the second largest Vaisakhi parade in all of the world here in Surrey. And they had these terrorist pictures on the floats. There was a big, lot of opposition about it. And so I don't go to them. There's like 100,000 people that show up at these events. And so they're well known to be supporting terrorists. The Sikhs are coming out all across Canada with their swords. In Vancouver, there were events where they're burning a picture of Modi. The Hindus are attacking, the Sikhs. The Sikhs are attacking. I don't want that here. Go home. Go back to your country. I don't care if I've offended you. You guys are offending us. We built this beautiful country and you're ruining it. And if I have anybody else that calls me and or contacts me, not too many people have, but I'm just saying, and say, oh, you need to take that down. You've offended a friend of mine and she's Sikh. Well, I'm sorry. I don't want to hear that she's Sikh. I want to hear she's Canadian and she's as concerned about this as I am. And we need to take the steps together to do this. Those communities, I don't want to hear anymore that I'm a Chinese Canadian or Sikh Canadian or Hindu Canadian. You're either a Canadian or you're out. You got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You're out. And that's where the line is going to be crossed at this point. So this is the announcement.
Surrey City Council is calling on Ottawa to declare the extortion crisis in Surrey a federal emergency. Mayor Brenda Locke brought forward the motion at a public hearing at City Hall last night, saying the crime and violence has escalated beyond local law enforcement's ability to respond.
We have to take a look at an awful lot of things to make sure we're doing this in a very holistic way, because this is absolutely just causing extreme concern, fear, and as has noted, alleged retaliation, and that is just.
So I was going to have a report up here as well. If I had, I could do a whole other series on this, and maybe I will. But I never receive a paper, and I received one the other day on Sunday morning. I'm looking at it, and the very top was about this so-called extortion, and it's like Sikh and Hindu violence. Call it what it is, and call them out by name. I'm sick and tired of dancing around who's doing this gang extortion. And it is a community of people. I'm sure the Chinese and the Mexican cartels are in there, but this is specific. And in the top of the paper, it showed all of this, like shooting here, shooting there, shooting here, all these different communities across Surrey. And then below it was another article from Abbotsford. And in 2021, a wonderful elderly couple were murdered. And they had hired a Hindu or Sikh, I don't know which he was, and to clean the gutters. And in the end, what happened was he found out that they were an elderly couple on their own, So he brought 2 others along with him. They had names like Singh and Kirpapreet or something. And they invaded their home, and they used duct tape and duct taped the lady. She's 77 years old, her hands and her feet, and they beat her to death in her bed. Then they took the man and they duct taped his hands and his feet and his face, and they beat him to death. He suffocated, and they beat him to death. These are the kind of monsters that the Liberal government has invited into Canada and are walking our streets. And they want to take away our guns? Are you kidding me? Don't you dare give up your guns. And they're trying to tell us that we can't carry spray as women? I'm not going to abide by that. They're outright telling us that we have every reason to be fearful in our communities from these foreigners who refuse to integrate and assimilate, and their clan continues to celebrate the foreign belief systems on our soil and then can't figure out why there's rising opposition against it. And about 10 years ago, we helped get counselors to the Surrey. This is an ongoing long problem with Surrey. And there was one counselor, I thought she was a wonderful Christian lady. We got her elected. Her name was Lori Guerrera. And on Vaisakhi is around Halloween, and it sounds like a war zone in Surrey. We've seen it in Brampton as well. Parking lots filled with fireworks, garbage everywhere. The parks are filled with garbage the next day. They don't care. They don't care about our bylaws. They don't care about our laws. So it was so bad. And my dog, actually it was 6 years ago, because my dog was in the process. I didn't realize she was dying, and she was having a lot of problems. She had her head buried in the corner. And my dog now is 6 years old. For the last 6 years, she is so fearful. I cannot console her when the fireworks are going off. She is so scared. She crawls under desks, under bathrooms. I have to turn music high loud until midnight or 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, because 3 o'clock in the morning, they're setting it off. So I wrote a letter to the city, the mayor and city council, and said, you need to do something about this community of people, about the Hindu community who are not abiding by our laws. If they don't understand them, then you need to build that bridge. You need to do more work. Lori comes back and communicated with me and included all of the mayor and city council at the time, and chastised me. She said, oh, well, I know a white person that also was setting off fireworks. This is the DEI type of thinking, and you got to break free from that. Yes, there are people from all different walks that are going to set off fireworks, but not where it sounds like a war zone. And I think if somebody showed up from the city and fined them, I think that would have been the last time they would have been doing that, because they ended up making it against the laws. It used to be okay to have fireworks in Surrey, but somebody was somewhere along the line ended it for a reason, because of the distress that it was causing. And so this is what we're up against. So if you are not electing people into office who are going to fully support shutting all of this down and treating everybody equally, that's what I want. Okay, if your neighbor was doing that, I'd like the police to show up and give them a $5,000 fine. Let's do this. I don't have a problem with that. But the majority, 99% of it, is one community of people. And it needs to be spoken out loud, and it needs to be stopped, because it's upsetting and it's against the law. And then this will be finally the last. So when they say, oh, you know what, don't talk about shutting down the gurdwaras and the temples, because these are good people here, that's not going on there. Well, I had to go for an eye exam, and a doctor, he ends up being the son of the father who had got one, I believe it was the Gurdwara Center going. And he told me that he had come home one day, his house was surrounded by police because there was terrorism connected to the Gurdwara. And he wanted nothing, to do with any of this. But he's making all of these threats. He says, intelligence agencies follow us around. They tell us to stop, but we won't. And then he goes on to say, the police can't do anything. Do you think we need the Canadian government? We have weapons, automatic rifles, AK-47s, bazookas, etc. So again, this is from 2023. I sent this report when I saw it on social media that this guy posted. I sent it to intelligence. I've never heard a report, but obviously things are pretty bad for the mayor of Surrey to be saying, that this is now a national, it's an emergency, that emergency measures need to be put in place. I would take this guy If he's not a Canadian citizen, because he certainly does, he sounds like an import, gone. You're deported, just like that. Start making an example of him. If you want to see this kind of action, then you're going to need to elect people into office who are going to make this happen, and you're going to have to start pressuring the government and the police to do their jobs. Can you imagine what the future looks like for our children? So the Bible verses for tonight are Exodus 34:20, verse 12 to 16. Be very careful never to make a treaty with the people who live in the land where you are going. If you do, you will follow their evil ways and be trapped. Now, I've read this verse before when dealing with the problems that we're having right now with the Indian community. I'm talking, I don't want to say native community. I don't want to use the indigenous language, but you know what I'm talking about, the reparations and the wealth transfers and all of those. So, but this applies to what we're seeing as far as the false gods. And that's why I brought this verse up to continue on. Instead, you must break down their pagan altars, smash their sacred pillars, and cut down their Asherah poles. You must worship no other gods, for the Lord, whose very name is jealous, is a God who is jealous about his relationship with you. You must not make a treaty of any kind with the people living in the land. They lust after the gods, offering sacrifices to them. They will invite you to join them in their sacrificial meals, and you will go with them. Then you will accept their daughters who sacrifice to other gods as wives for your sons, and they will seduce your sons to commit adultery against me by worshiping other gods. And so what God is saying is he's a jealous God. He wants our love and affection focused on him. And if you look in Brampton right now, I was going to have an image of that tonight. They've got a nearly 60-foot monkey god. It is so disgusting and despicable. And it makes my heart sink because I believe that we should be uncompromising to the word of God. And therefore, we need to remove all these false gods from our nation. We need to shut them down. Multiculturalism Day can no longer happen in our school systems. We need to bring back prayer, and we need to bring back the word of God into teaching, because you can see where all of this is going. It's not working in those cultures. And if political correctness continues to rule the day, then you're not going to pause to think about, to ask yourself, have I been psychologically manipulated and groomed into accepting all of this? When what we used to have decades ago was so beautiful and so wonderful. I would have been so excited for my children and grandchildren to have a future in Canada. And now I feel nothing but dread unless we turn this around. And we've heard that was it Reagan who talked about, freedom is never free. Was it Reagan? Somebody can correct me on that. It's okay, but freedom isn't free. We have to pass it on. We have to fight for it and pass it on to the next generations. And when I say we need to be uncompromising to the word of God, if it says you have no other gods before me, then we got to trust that God is a jealous God, and that, listen to the next two verses then, it makes it to the top 10 commandments. In fact, it is the first commandment in Exodus. It says, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. And then the verse finishes by saying, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Now, what I want you to understand is that we all look at Canada and we shake our head and say, what happened? Well, what did we do in 1982 when Pierre Elliott Trudeau put multiculturalism in the charter and people didn't honor the fact that it said, yes, we will recognize that there's people coming here from other cultures, but instead they allowed elected officials to advance other cultures' systems of belief. They advanced temples to go up. They allowed mosques to go up. They allowed multiculturalism celebrations, demonic celebrations to come into our schools and affect our kids. What is this all about? So God says, I'm a jealous God, and I will punish the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation if we don't turn this around. We have a massive responsibility right now. And I know what I'm saying tonight can be like your mind's probably going, Tanya, I can't believe you're saying this. But because I've immersed myself in the Word of God and I believe what He has to say. I believe that if you look in the Bible and throughout history, that when a nation has turned their back on God, He, for a period of time, turns their back on Him. And when you recognize what's happening in countries like Poland, Hungary, and other nations, what do they talk about? They talk about communism coming in and other horrible things that have, I'm just going to stop sharing screen here. And what's the main message you hear coming up as new governments are coming in? They are raising up the Christian banner. They are saying this is a Christian nation. And the only way I believe this is going to turn around in Canada is you find your patriotism, what's it based on? The fact that this is a Christian nation. And that we've got to raise our banner high and put God back on the throne to save the future for our children. So I've given you a lot to think about tonight. That was a lot of work to put that together. And I ask that you share it. Next week on the show is going to be our good friend Dallas Brody. Man, she's working hard. Her and Francis and Jim are taking a lot of heat and a lot of criticism. Action for Canada is taking a lot of heat and a lot of criticism. But the beauty is that Canadians are waking up. Our youth are waking up because of it. And so Dallas and I are going to have a discussion about the Marxism that has infiltrated our universities, the effect this is having on our kids, and that movement that we see down in the United States has got to wave. It's got to come to Canada, and we got to touch the hearts and minds of our children because they are indeed the key to the future. So anyways, thank you so much for spending this time with us tonight. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
Virtuous hearts will pursue it. You have a virtuous heart if you are here today pursuing freedom and righteousness. And then verse 23 comes along with a promise. God says He will turn the sins of evil people back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. I take great comfort in that because I serve a mighty living God who has allowed us to go through this season of discomfort because we as a nation had turned our backs on Him and we need to get right. So I am just going to thank you so much. I'm going to say God bless you and God bless Canada.